So I thought I need to find a way of just embedding exercise in my daily routine. I do think we've got access now in 2018 to amazing dietary advice and all of that. But it's hard in London to exercise. And I thought I would try commuting to work, Chiswick to Oxford Circus, 6.5 miles. That's 13 miles a day. That's, 75 miles a week. And I started, and if I hadn't started, I would be 16 stone now. But it gave me, I think there's a lot of stuff we'll talk about safety and the downside. But the upside is that if you spent the whole of your life, as I had, on tubes, in black cabs, on trains, particularly in a car. I've got a car, I insure a car, I tax a car. When you get onto a bike, it's like you're flying. It's an amazing, freeing feeling. And I think the sadness for me is that people are stuck on the safety point and they don't see beyond it. I mean, I think there's something to do with kids here as well. I've got 2 daughters who are 11 and 13. Now, I can take risks. I've got my whole sort of operation of cameras and lights and every other thing in that bag, but I can't really impose the risk on them. And a good test for me is, can I get my 13-year-old to cycle from Chiswick to Trafalgar Square on a Saturday? Is there any way I can be genuinely certain she's safe? I don't mind going a long way round. I can't at the moment. I can't. There's a whole CS9 thing going on in Chiswick at the moment, as you'll know, and I've not really taken part in it. But I did ask, there's a particular councillor who's very, very anti it. And I did just tweet to this person saying, can you explain how my 13-year-old can cycle down the Chiswick High Road unless you build a bike path? I wish it wasn't called a superhighway, by the way. And she said, yes, she can cycle on the pavement. Now, I'm just trying, how does that actually work? Is that true for a start? In law, is that true? My 13-year-old could? I don't think so. I think it would cause a lot of... And then where am I when she's cycling on the pavement? Am I on a bus or something, or what? So it's quite a good test, just, would your 13-year-old cycle from... It's too dangerous, yeah, I'm sensing not. But risk perception is a massive thing in our society, and of course the one thing we don't say is that it's very, very, very dangerous to sit on a sofa eating Pringles and watching Netflix. That's the biggest... That is the biggest danger.
Or at the moment, Winter Olympics, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to pick up on the issue of children, and we've got a mayor who said during the mayoral election campaign that he was very worried about allowing his daughters to cycle in London because he was worried about safety. So hopefully that's going to get him really working on actually making it safer. But you've said, Jeremy, already that you're concerned about your kids cycling on the road, getting them from Chiswick to Trafalgar Square. What do you think would actually make you feel confident about your children making everyday journeys on their bike?
I think one of the great things that's happened in the last few years is that segregated lane on Embankment. So we can all see at the absolute, if we want to get somewhere good, that's where we want to get. And I've seen pictures tweeted of very small children on that, which, unthinkable years ago. Now, I know cab drivers and others were furious when it was all going. These things do cause ructions when they're built. But now, I was looking at the figures, apparently it takes up 1 lane of a 4-lane road and carries more traffic in rush hour than the other 3 lanes put together. That's the dream, is it not to have that on every road, but just to have it in a place where I can get from Chiswick, I can get to it, and then I can go down it and end up at Trafalgar Square. That's all. So if we had a north-south and an east-west, that'd be lovely. But I'll put up with anything that takes me out of danger in areas of real hazard. Now, Hammersmith Broadway is an example. I think several years ago there was a vote, consultation, it was all decided it's going to change, nothing's happened. I engage with it every day, I go across it. It is like going into the 7th circle of hell as a cyclist. You just hope you come out the other side, but you're not sure. And I'm waiting and waiting for something to happen there. So that's the block slightly. Kensington High Street is problematic as well, particularly if you've got kids. I'm not asking for the world, just one route. There are so many roads that don't have cycle tracks. Could we just have one? That's all, just one.
Direction.
Yeah, well, we could cycle both ways down the one. It's half a one would be okay.
That political leaders are reluctant to invest in cycling? If so, why?
I was, obviously, I'm a little bit conscious of politics and the local elections and all of that, so I'm going to be a little bit careful on parties. But I was thinking when I came here that we have got this CS9 issue in Chiswick, and what's happened is that the plans have been sort of dumped on Chiswick, and then everyone's been forced to fight over them, and it's a pretty unedifying sight. And the idea is that we get to some sort of consensus where everyone agrees the cycle route, and they then build it. That's never ever going to happen. There was a church in Chiswick where they've actually been praying that it's going to be scrapped. So my thought is, in answer to your question, that where you don't have consensus, you have to lead. And that is the role of politicians. Now, I haven't looked closely into the whole Boris Johnson final 2 years, but they seem to suddenly think, oh my goodness, we haven't done what we want to do. And they just suddenly rushed it through. And some of those schemes, Walthamstow apparently, is absolutely brilliant. Embankment I've mentioned. And they, you know, by just saying, oh, that's it, we're doing it. The one in Hyde Park, they worked. So I think one of the problems for you as a group, collectively as politicians, and this goes for people who lead the police and the NHS and the BBC, is that we are in the era of hyper accountability. So every single thing you say and every single thing you do comes back at you on Twitter, distorted, loaded, twisted. And therefore your natural instinct is to say, all right, what do we all think? And the answer is we all think different things, and that's why we need you to say, we're building this, we're going to do it. So, funnily enough, I think more than ever we need political leadership on this.
How much do you think the debate around quiet ways, cycle superhighways, I mean, Chiswick is a point in case, people are up in arms in one sense and some other people want it to happen. How balanced do you think the debate is? Because all of our talk about cycling has always been, it's hugely beneficial, we have to have it, but it seems to be a big resistance. What are we doing to break that resistance down?
We talked a lot about changing perspectives. We talked a lot about some people being angry. Talked a lot about how do you change the culture. I think it's a deeply embedded thing, and some people are going to be unhappy if you lot take a lead and try to do things differently. So I think that's what's happened. You take power. You change the perspective, you change the rules of the road, but you take road away from one lot of road users and give it to another, then the people who are losing out are going to be angry about it. I don't really see how you're going to change that.
I think where you will help people is if you offer a narrative, and it's the measurements I've seen show that pollution has dropped on Embankment, for example, since the segregated lane came in. You can fit a hell of a lot of cyclists into the space that one person in a car takes. Secondly, I think the pollution narrative, the carbon narrative is the key one. We just can't go on expanding, trying to fit more people into this city, all of them in cars. But, people, when the Bayswater cycle route was being put up and constructed, there was a tweet from a cab account which said there needs to be a total moratorium on the building of cycle routes until pollution levels have dropped. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even know how you can debate that, because all of these things are going to involve a bit of pain, I guess, and that's where we need communication from you all.